Okay, so what we're going to talk about is sum and difference formula today. So sine. Don't write this down.
I don't know. You think it's real?
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't want to be on camera right now. No, I'm on camera. I know. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. It's called the trigonometries for sum and difference formula.
Just define.
Okay, so what is sum and difference formula? So for example, we know what the sine of 5 pi over 3 is. But do we know sine of, let's say, 17 pi over 12? So 17 pi over 12 is composed of two unit circle values. And so we need to add two angles together. So what is sine of two angles plus together? So here's the first formula. Now, a lot of you guys are going to look at this with fear. Don't look at it fear. Let's just say, I can do this. Because the first time you see this, it's going to be like shock. But if you have that mindset that says, I can do it, then your mind's going to switch to I can do it. Okay?
Don't you, to find like 17 pi over 3, like the sine of it, why don't you just like subtract like 2 pi?
Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit. You're thinking about something like reference angle and stuff like that, but it's not like that. Okay, so if the first formula is going to be this, sine of A plus B, and there's a parenthesis. Now, you can never distribute this, ever, because this is called composite function, and this one you cannot distribute into this, because A plus B is the function in the sine. Do not distribute. If distribute, then that's where you get a wrong answer. So what is that equal to? That's not equal to sine of A plus sine of B. They're not equal to each other. So that's what people usually end up doing wrong. So what happened is, I want you to remember this formula, this acronym is SMS, and then CSO. Okay, so this SMS, what is S? S stands for sine, M stands for mixed group, S stands for same sign. Okay, so sine, mixed groups, same sign. What do you mean by sine? Well, sine, we're going to start with a sine. And we're going to have a mixed group between cosine and sine. So it's going to be sine, cosine, cosine, sine. And leave some space. And then we're going to fill in the A and B's. A, B, A, B. And this all times. And this is a, so if you have this, see this is a mixed group. You see that's completely mixed, sine, cosine. And the other way is cosine, sine, but it's cosine of A instead of cosine of B. And sine B, so it's even the angle is completely mixed. And if this is a plus, you should end up with a plus. Okay? Now we're going to do a minus sign also. So A minus B. It's going to be the same thing, except minus. Because they say same sign as this one. So this one's going to be minus. So sine A, cosine B. Cosine of A, sine B. So that's called sum and difference formula for sine. Now, for the cosine, this stands for cosine. And that stands for same group. Not only same group, it's same group start with a cosine. Because that is same group start with cosine, this one's opposite side. I'll give you a try. See if you know how to do it. So I'm going to start with the cosine of A plus B. So let's see if you can figure out what I mean by CSO. So here's C. C stands for cosine. S stands for same group, but start with cosine. Same group, start with cosine. Group is not mixed. It's probably going to start with the cosine. What do you think? No, it's going to be sec. Cosine A, cosine B.
Oh, so now, okay.
So now, if you did it, you probably did it bad, but that's okay. We're going to try
Wait,
cosine of A
is it,
and then cosine of B.
and then it's just minus sine
Minus sine
A.
A, sine
Sine
B. That's it. So that's like a logic. Okay, so now how do you know the other one? It's equal to what?
It's the same thing as positive.
Same thing, it's positive. Cosine. So I usually write down cosine first, and sine. And that's A and B, A and B, and this is a plus. So it's just opposite sign. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about something. We're gonna say, hey, we're gonna ask you to evaluate this. Sine of 75 degrees. Well, we know 75 is not on a unit circle. 75 is, because the unit circle we have 60, we have 90, but we didn't have 75, right? So this must be two combination can give me 75. That's on unit circle though, has to be on unit circle. It cannot be say, well, that's sine of 10 degree plus sine of 55 degree or 65 degree, then that doesn't make sense. Yes?
60 and 15.
60 and 15 now. 60 on unit circle is a 15 on unit circles.
45.
30 and 45?
30 and 45, good. Now, I say, hey, so if you say 30 and 45, then that's good. So then you're gonna have sine of two angles. So that's what's A and B representing. Yesterday somebody asked me, what's A and B representing? A just means an angle. In this case, A is equal to 30. So now I'm gonna follow the formulas. So think about this like in chemistry, right? You guys, some of you guys just take chemistry test earlier. It's gonna be like this is a product, this is a reactant, right? So if I have a product here, I have a reactant. A reactant is gonna be what? Well, it's gonna follow this formula. What are the formula you have to follow? Sine of angle plus angle. So which set? This set or this set?
First.
First set. Now in first set, which one?
Top.
Top one. So then you're gonna write it exactly the same. Sine, cosine, cosine, sine, and it's gonna be plus, and this is gonna be 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and 30 degrees, and 45 degrees. And this is a plus. And what happened is, sine of 30, look at your unit circle,
Oh.
tell me what sine of 30 degree.
Oh, square root of 2 over 2.
No, you're gonna fail that unit circle again.
20.
Sine of 30 degree is now square root of 2 over 2.
Oh, sorry, square root. 1/2.
1/2.
Sorry.
Think about it. 30 degrees right here, right? And this is a triangle. Look at it in terms of triangle because that has the shorter length of the y value. Sine is the y value. And this is the x value. So if I say sine of 30 degrees, that's the smaller value. So it's 1/2. So now if you change it from here to here, this becomes 1/2 because this completely equal each other. What is cosine of 45? Now it's square root 2 over 2 because they're exactly same length. When it's at here, they have exact same length. So plus cosine of 30. What's cosine of 30? Times sine square root 2 over 2. Now those two are multiplying. When you multiply fraction, it just multiplies straight. Asia, move your seat up here so you can see. So when you move this, so when you times this, that's just going to be 1 times square root 2. That's equal to square root 2. 2 times 2 is what? 4. You do not cross multiply here because it's not equal sign. So don't ever use cross multiply here. Plus, square root 3 times square root 2 is what?
6.
Square root 6 over 4. That's equal to square root 2 plus square root 6 over 4. Now, can square root 2 and square root 6 add? No, they are not common like radicals. So this is something not to do. Some people did a perfect, beautiful job right here, right? And I end up marking the wrong answer. I said, Mr. Ye always told me to simplify. And that's what happened. Square root 2 plus square root 6. I think that's square root 8. And that's 4. I think 8 and 4 can cancel. So that's going to be square root 2. So answer is square root 2. This, I would end up marking wrong. Because square root 2 and square root 6, they are unlike radical, they cannot add them together. So that's what people end up doing, and like, oh no. And there's another thing that people end up doing, it's like this. Sine of 30, they write down, says sine of 1/2. Don't do that. Sine of 30 is equal to 1/2. Cosine of 45 is equal to square root 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 is equal to this. Sine of 30 is equal to this. Got it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to try a question. I'm going to ask you to try sine of 165.
Oh, so that would be the answer.
Sine of 165. Now you got to think about two combination. That's two combination all in unit circle. That's why I give you a unit circle there. Two combination have to be a unit circle. It cannot be anything else. Anybody think take a test yesterday? No. And this is on the final exam for sure. So I'm thinking about putting in my Instagram account. I'm gonna put like a video clip of like one question a day go to final exam. So I'm a review of one question only on final exam every day. I'm gonna put up like a daily Instagram account. Yeah, like a what's that guy's name? There was like a Muslim guy that he traveled the world for like 100 days or 1,000 days. Nas Daily. Yeah, Nas Daily. So we're gonna cover from now about 40 days. I'm hoping like I have time to do like a daily final exam thing, so you can just look at it and say, oh, this is what he told a long time ago, and then kind of remind. But you had to add me. On
Yeah,
my
we did do
Instagram.
2,000 followers.
Every day.
But I won't follow back
Please
Thank you.
because I'd be creepy.
Yes.
Let me answer.
No, I won't follow anybody back. I follow people back if they graduate, but I don't follow people.
Follow me back.
No, I cannot. You almost graduate.
Yeah.
When you graduate.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the answer square root of 2?
Yeah, that's the final answer.
I don't know any angles that like add up.
Oh, but dude, wait, isn't. Okay, no.
Then they will figure out. Those two angles add up to be 165. So you gotta think about combination on the unit circle. Think about it has to be 30, 45, 60, 90,
Yeah.
1.
Does it have to be next to each other?
I don't know.
Like, can it be?
They don't have to be next to each other, no. There was an infinite amount of choice that you can do this question. You can subtract, yes. But that's gonna make things a little bit more difficult, but it still can be done. And actually, the one I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a subtraction.
Oh, will you get the same answer?
Yes, that's the one nice thing about it. It will get the same answer if you do it right.
Oh my god.
You can look at your empty unit circle. The empty one is given to you. Also, sum and distance formula, I want you to write it right here. So you can write it in without looking at it, So you can try to write it in because this is gonna be part of the quiz on Monday. Okay, so all this is part of the quiz now.
Square root 6 minus root 2 over 4.
Oh, yeah, like,
What do you guys? What's your
If you got it, raise your hand, I'll come check if it's the right answer.
That's what bothers me. Okay. How do you multiply? Factors? Why would you? Yeah, you do actually. You do.
Okay.
Just press.
Square root 6 minus.
Oh, no. Did you put the numbers that add up to? Okay, think of two numbers that add up to 165.
Yeah.
And then you know how the table has 30?
Wait, when they have a common denominator and multiply, does it stay like this?
that's what we asked.
Stomach's growling so hard. Face loud. I think it's big pig. Let me put a milk right here.
No, what do you got? Then you can find out.
Fine. Wait, she's picking like that. Actually, I don't wanna answer because it's like, he really does not like it.
Yeah, very good.
I know, I really like, when you exercise begins, I know, it just helps him really good.
When do you graduate? When I get
That's perfect, yeah. That's awesome, Sophia.
Is it 120?
When do you
Yeah,
graduate?
that's perfect. You can
You can do it.
You can do it. It's not plus, because cosine of 120. No, that's wrong. It should be the other way around. It should be the other way around. Yep. 45, okay, let's see which one. Cosine of 120.
I haven't figured it out yet, but I will one day.
Oh!
So this one should be negative, right?
Does it matter what order?
It had to be this order. But it has to be square root 6 minus square root 2. Something is wrong, some sign is wrong.
And then how you?
He did it right, Deborah did it right.
Oh, no, how do you say it? Oh, but you should
Oh, yeah.
times 45. She used 1/25, I used 1/25.
Anyway.
Are you excited?
You know what you want?
This is short.
What?
No, this is good. This is, yeah, you just change the time.
I would
from
probably
so
go
it's square root 6 minus square root 2. She
You
had
know the top level.
It wouldn't matter if you put 1 into your first or 45 first.
Doesn't matter, but you just have to follow the same sequence.
Sine of y, so it's.
And that way you. Alright. Most of you guys are doing it differently, so I'm gonna be more creative. I'm gonna pick a little bit harder number to deal with.
Both of them are
And I say, let's go with 210 and 45. Okay, so let's go with 210 and 45 and see if we get the same answer. So let's say sine of 210 minus 45, because I say I like 210. Or you guys use different number, you should get the same result.
The cosine.
So that's equal to, well, this is a minus sign, so that means a sine, that means minus sign. So it'll be sine, cosine, cosine, sine. Okay, so I'm gonna follow the same sequence. 210, 45, right? And then 210 and 45. And what is sine of 210? What is sine 210? I use differently. I use different number you did.
Okay, that was like,
Negative 1/2, thank you. Cosine of 45 square root 2 over 2. Minus cosine of 210 is what? Negative square root 3 over 2. And then times square root 2 over 2. So that's going to be negative square root 2 over 4. And this one's going to be plus square root 6 over 4. So that's end up to be negative square root 2 plus square root 6 over 4. And that's the same answer as you because I'm going to change this way the other way. If you get a final answer, should be look like this.
I put 20 on right and sine first.
and don't sign it with
You had to, yeah, but you had to make sure they follow exact same orientation, right? So that way you don't mess up. Because minus sign didn't matter, right? So minus sign didn't matter because 210 minus 45. But if you have 30 and 45, it doesn't matter what your order is. You should get a
The
same.
question is like, we have it, she has it the other way around. Because I put 120 and 45 and I kept that pattern.
Yeah,
She has it the other way, so she has 45 and 120.
it should because it's adding, it doesn't matter.
But I don't know why. You did it wrong. You're supposed to switch these.
Did you hear me?
That's right, okay. Just confused.
Okay, so are we okay?
Yep.
Okay, so now the challenge is, how about this? How about cosine of, I'm gonna give you one, this one's hard, is 7 pi over 12. But you gotta think about 2 radians. 2 radians is gonna add up to be 7 pi over 12. Now, 2 radian to be 7 pi over 12, you have to be a little bit of a thinking skill. Think about which thing is gonna be something over 12. So, I'm gonna let you start for 30 seconds and let you think about it. Because 7 pi over 12 is a little bit more challenging. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. There's one way is you can convert 7 pi over 12 to degrees.
And save you some time.
And then do it that way. Or you can do a different way than that. Because 7 pi over 12 can be composed of 2 different fractions as well. And those 2 different fractions is actually kind of not hard to tell because the option of that is not too many. For example, pi over 12 plus 6 pi over 12. But the problem is pi over 12 It's on unit circle or no?
Well, yes.
15 though.
Pi over 12 is not.
How about 2 pi over 12 plus 5 pi over 12? Well, 2 pi over 12 is on unit circle, and the 5 pi over 12 is not on unit circle. So let's think about the next combinations.
How would you get an awesome?
Wait,
that work? Yeah, that works.
Feasible, you just can't, they're just,
You can
don't
use
say.
negative, right?
You can use negative, but you can also, this one is be easier to use with adding.
Wait, what, no, wait.
I'm missing.
Four more, 7 pi over 12.
You have to like a fraction?
And it's cosine of 7 pi over 12.
Square root of 6. Wait, how would that work?
But all the,
Okay, I need.
all of them on here, they just don't say it, right?
No, the one is gonna be pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over. Yeah, good job, I hear it. I hear it already. I'll say good job. So, some people says, hey, it's gonna be 3 pi over 12 plus 4 pi over 12. Why is that?
You can simplify.
I can simplify this. So that's gonna be cosine of what? Pi over 4 plus pi over 3.
Yeah.
And then that's equal to cosine cosine, sine sine, right? And this is a plus, so this CSO, so this is gonna be end up in minus. So that's gonna be pi over 4
Is this neutral?
times pi over 3. And sine of pi over 4 and a pi over 3. And then you should be able to easily simplify this. I'm gonna let you finish this part because that's the part that is pretty easy. And you should get, everybody should get a similar answer. So you should end up to be what?
Square root of 2 minus
Square root 2 over 2, right? Times what? 1/2 minus
Square root over 2.
square root 2 over 2 times square root 3 over 2. So that's equal to square root of 2
Over 4 minus square root of 6 over 4.
over what?
Square root of 6 over 4.
Okay, so I want you to try this one. I want you to try cosine of, I don't know, 19 pi over 12. So think about cosine of 19 pi over 12. Cosine of 19 pi
I
over
have
12.
a question. Can there be like more than 2 in the thing?
Can it be 3 angle add together? Yeah, that formula gets disgusting. I don't even know how. So I rather do it 2.
Okay, I just have to leave that out there. What's it?
What do I say? 19 pi over 12?
Oh, that's a thing. Yay.
Oh, yeah, if there was 3, then you could just, yeah.
Hopefully I did that right.
19 pi over 12.
You get that?
Is it 5? Is it 5 pi over 6? 6?
Oh my god, no, there is one, but that's not one.
And then you could do,
I
pi over 4.
Pi over four
So you can do
plus
pi over 6 and pi over 4.
Pi to the power, so.
These they simplify.
I did.
Right?
What'd you do?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do it like that and see if I can.
16 pi over 12 and 3 pi.
Pi over four.
Pi over 4.
I think at the top I saw the pi over four.
Okay, good.
I love the fours, that's what makes it. Is it the same answer?
You should get same answer
As the 165 degrees.
sine of 165.
Yeah.
You should get same answer as sine of 165. Now, I want to ask you the reason why you have a same answer. There are reason why we have a same answer.
This is 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3. 4 pi over 3. Down here? 5 pi over 3. And then 6 pi over 3. So yeah, 4 pi over 3 would be, so 16.
If you have answered correctly, it should be a 7 sine of 165. Which is you've done it before.
Which 3, so it'd be pi over 3.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
So weak.
Alright.
So,
What do you do now?
I can't wait to-
Okay, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it needs that.
Sophie,
Summer's bad, because then you don't get paid.
I get paid
Oh,
because
yeah.
I save.
What do you
You don't do that?
What?
I save the
Sophie, what
money
do you
on
use?
that.
What do you use?
But still,
What do you mean?
What number?
No,
Like,
I
what?
get paid at work.
do you do more tutoring over summer?
I do.
Oh,
I'm a
5 pi over 4 and pi over 3.
Oh.
That kind of sucks when you're.
I did 5 pi over 6 and 2 pi over 4.
You get the right answer though?
5 over 12. Yeah.
You get the right
Yeah.
answer?
Okay, I'm gonna go over it now. You should have a same answer as that. You should have a same answer of the square root 6 minus square root 2 over 4 if you did it right.
Oh wait, that was the top one, I was messing up on it, okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it here. So
I did it.
sine of, what would it talk about? Cosine of 19 pi over 12. Cosine of 19 pi over 12. That's equal to cosine of what?
16 pi over 12 plus 3 pi over 12.
16 pi over 12. Is that okay? 16 pi over 12
Yeah, 4 pi over 2.
Plus 3
plus what?
3 pi.
3 pi over 12. And that's equal to cosine of 4 pi over 3, right? Plus pi over 4. Okay? And then if you do cosine, cosine, you should get a same answer. 4 pi over 3. And what? Cosine of pi over 4. And then minus sine of 4 pi over 3. And sine of pi over 4, I think. And you should get the very similar answer as this one. Square root 6 minus square root 2 over 4. Now, let's talk about why they have the same answer. Yes?
It's because it's a whole rotation.
No.
Yeah.
Mm. Do you know what's 19 pi over 12? What degree is that? Can you convert it for me?
5 over 12.
Is it 165?
No, it's not 165. That was a good try though. What's 19 pi over 12?
8. 19 times 15.
You did it without pencil? That's pretty impressive.
It's 2, that's 300.
It's 286.
Because it's 270.
Yes.
If it's right there, it's 300.
285, good.
Ooh, I was close.
So here's my question. Why is the sine of 165 degree, right, is equal to cosine of 285 degree? Now the reason of this is take a lot of complex thinking. Think about where the sine of 165 is. Where's sine of 165? It's all the way in this quadrant, right? And this, we're not going 15 degrees, so this is gonna be left with a 15 degree right here. Right? Does that make sense? So this is the y value. Now, cosine of 285 is gonna be what? This is 270, right? It's also 15 degrees away, so it's gonna be like this, but it's using an x value. So this value, or exactly equal to this value, because it's exactly same distance away, it's exactly 15 degrees away. So that 15 degrees is gonna cause that, just like this, going 15 degree up, and then that's gonna give you a same thing. So this part here and this part here are equivalent. So that's why they have exact same value. So end up, you're gonna get a combination of those. Either square root of 2 plus square root of 6, square root of 2 minus square root of 6, square root of 6 minus square root of 2, and something over something is always over 4. Your answer something should be something like that. Now, I'm gonna ask you a next question. Next question is a little bit more thinking. Think about the product and reactant situation in chemistry. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask you this questions here. I'm gonna say, hey, what is sine of 20 and cosine of 25, and then plus sine of 25, cosine of 20. And I say, hey, can you write it down to a single simple fractions? Your answer should be a
That's easy, it's sine.
shh. Write it down, and then just write down the answer for me. It's gonna be a single fractions. If you simplify all the way correctly. Now think about product and reactant. That's something I'm gonna ask you to do. Is in the product and reactant situations. So this time I have so most of the time I have a reactant. I ask you what's the product. But this time I ask you differently. You should get a simple fraction. Good.
I don't know, understand.
You should get a simple fraction at the end.
Dude, it's not hard.
I don't
Like,
understand.
you have to, okay, so
Mr. Yes.
it's confusing how he said
Sure,
it.
everybody.
You basically have to go back, like, as if you have to find what he was giving you, like, what's
What does that one
first.
look like?
Out of those. So it would just be sine 25
Oh, so
or
it's
sine.
Okay, that's
Like,
what,
right?
okay.
So if,
So that means that and that are being added.
Yeah, perfect. Make sure your group know.
So
Make sure your group
this
is.
step, or before you write the equation for the sign, you have the ability. So if you go.
Oh, okay.
You know that.
So it's,
The sign.
That doesn't make sense though.
It's just
Basically, like how he's landing.
I don't wanna be wrong.
I was paying attention, I was paying attention.
You got it? Okay, but that's a simple fraction. Look, that's not a simple fraction.
Are you solving this?
We have
How do you solve
to
it?
turn it into.
You know this.
Yeah, so we're solving it using those.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, so if
Oh,
you do that.
okay.
Okay, did we get what it was?
Wait, I'm wrong, but can you tell me where I'm wrong? No.
Amelia,
Why would it be sine?
Jeremy,
Would it be
can you help out,
cosine
Amelia?
sine 40?
What's
No, because
Can you help me out?
so it's fine.
Yeah, no, Bryce does.
Okay.
Yeah, like these smart brass.
Can Bryce now help me out?
What is it?
I still get it. Oh, wait.
Product, reactant product.
I don't know, but.
You
You know what?
I don't know.
I know.
So I was doing it right?
You're taking way too long. No, I said,
You got it?
My expectations are up here, and you're giving me this.
Yeah, you got
I
it.
think so.
That's not
What would this be?
Mr. Redford.
All right.
The way he explained it was weird, but it wasn't.
Yeah. I didn't understand that at all. I'm not.
So you think about this as a
Okay, so.
product, and I'm gonna ask you, product is on this side, right? So you think about what is reactant. Reactant is gonna be something that looks like this, has sine and cosine. So that has to be in this format, but this format changed a little bit. Do you see that? This is multiplication, right? So I can switch this, becomes cosine of 20
You know that the sign.
and sine of 25. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They can switch. Now this switch looks like exactly like this. So then that's equal to sine of 20 plus 25, which is sine of 45, which is square root 2 over 2.
So yeah, there's something on your iPad.
What is it?
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
He put that there.
Yo.
Like,
Oh.
like he did that.